I would like everyone to take a chance to think of a question that they would like to know about me, since I've known many of you for a few years now, and share with you my answer and then have an interaction of kind of a back and forth. But first, let me introduce myself for those of you who are a little unfamiliar about me. I have been with Toastmasters for about 5 years. I've enjoyed it thoroughly. I refused to do pathways up until the very last. So if you've noticed, we're at the end of May and I did not cross over. And I have now decided to take that leap of faith because I'm getting more familiar with the website and I'm starting to like it. I still am a little boggled by some of their not so intuitive pathways, courses that you can go down. So I'm going to go ahead and throw out a name. So Stella, have you got a question for me? You might have to unmute.
Shelley, tell me about how you ended up in what drew you to the health field?
That's a very good question. That goes way back. When I was in high school, I actually thought about becoming a veterinarian, and I worked for a veterinarian for a couple of years between the time of 15 and 16, almost 17, and thoroughly enjoyed it. And I couldn't make the association as to why every Saturday and Sunday that I worked, why I kept coming home with these horrible itchy eyes and stuffy nose. And I was told that there's probably a good chance I'm allergic to something in the office. Turns out I'm allergic to cats. All of our cats have always been outside. So I chose to still stay in the biological sciences and looked at, after graduation, where would that take me? And I just started taking the basic courses in biology and ended up in anatomy and physiology and found the human body to be amazingly fascinating. It is complex and at the same time simplistic. And of course, we'll never know the full capacity of what this marvelous machine is that we've been given. But that definitely drew me right into nursing, not to become a medical doctor, but to actually be a nurse. My grandmother was a nurse. My aunt was a nurse. My mom's paranoid of blood, so I must have skipped that generation. So I really am both fulfilling a career that I loved and a family tradition. We have nurses in the family, and now I have 2 nieces and 1 nephew who are now nurses. That's a good question. Thank you. Sakoshi, do you have a question for me this morning? You might need to unmute. Oh, there you go.
First. So Shelley, what got you into Toastmasters and what has been the best part for you of being a Toastmaster?
What got me into Toastmasters was a friend. Her name is Tammy, and she actually was part of our club for quite a while. As soon as I enrolled in Toastmasters, I realized this is a place I needed to be. I had already started my role as an educator at the hospital and understood that not only speaking one-to-one with students, but in a larger group was going to be a necessary talent, because it really is a talent to stand up and talk about complexities of the body or emotional and empathetic situations that go on every minute of the job. And as I delved more and more into Toastmasters, the leadership component also fascinated me. So I'm really glad I was invited to come one day. She has since left the group. Actually, she was in there for maybe just a few months longer. Her job prevented her from staying in the group. But I find that it is an amazing way to stay active and to keep my mind young. So I'm very grateful for Toastmasters. A very good question. Thank you. Phil, have you got a question for me?
I do. I have 2 questions. The first one's very brief. Who was it that introduced you to the club? I didn't understand it.
Tammy Thomas.
Oh, yes. Okay. Thank you. So let's go a different route. I'm so envious of anybody that has a cabin over on Decatur Island.
Oh,
Tell us about the story of how you happen to have that cabin and how often do you
you
use it?
bet. So about 27 years ago, my husband became fascinated with the San Juan Islands, and he decided we were going to buy some property out there. So he took a couple of days off work and flew out to some of the non-ferried islands. That's what he was looking for. And he found a lot on Decatur Island, about 3/4 of an acre. It's in a little community called Decatur Shores Association. And then we went out by our boat and we looked at it, and it is straight down. We bought it, and then we were able to build our own cabin. It's about 800 square feet, 2-story log cabin looking like. And then we also realized that we needed a buoy. So we worked with the Department of Natural Resources and accommodated that. We were on solar and collective water for about 15 years. And then I found that I wanted to come out to the cabin where I didn't want to have to worry about solar batteries or solar panels. And I said, you know what? We need to convert this back to the grid and the water system. And so we did that. And so it's been 25 years now. And we try and make it out as often as we can. Still waiting for Rick to retire so we can be spending more time out there. But we've enjoyed it thoroughly, and it is a completely different world. It's very tranquil out there. And it is something that I'm really glad we did as youngsters. Thank you, Phil. Good question. And I'm just going to say, I'm sorry, Stella, what was my time? You might have to unmute. Still might have to unmute.
Well, I'm going to stop the time here.
Okay.
It was at 6 minutes, 48 seconds.
Oh, okay. Do I have time for one more question?
And I apologize. I didn't realize what the amount of time was, so I just decided to start putting minutes up.
Okay, that. I'm going to go ahead and ask Madam Toastmaster. Do I have time for one more question?
I'll allow it.
Thank you. Mike, have you got a question for me?
Yes, Shelley. I know you've been active with, I don't remember the exact term, but pulmonary sclerosis aspect of things.
Yes.
Could you tell us just a little bit about your involvement?
Oh, absolutely. So I have systemic scleroderma that affects my lungs and GI system. When I realized my disease was getting pretty bad and I couldn't perform my job, I chose to medically retire about 7 years ago and did not know of anybody else who had scleroderma. And then I got a call from a lady in Gig Harbor who we met online, actually, not like we were dating, but she encouraged me to connect with the state support group president, which I did. And to speed things forward, I sit on the board for the state of Washington and Idaho, and I'm their medical education officer, which fits appropriately for me. And I decided to, even though I am retired, I still keep an active nursing license, and I do all of the state patient education workshops. And I also reach out to others to make that connection for those of us with this rare disease. Thank you, Mike. Very good question. My time looks like it's up. I'm sorry, Stella, I couldn't read that, but I'm going to assume it's up. So thank you, everybody. And I hope sharing a little bit about myself was exciting.